The masses are united. United by poverty, by unemployment, by lack of necessities of life. Today, this currency you are talking about, again, you can quote me here. The politicians, they said they wanted to deprive of money. Have vested interest in the banks. Some of them own banks. You are aware of this. They own the banks. So if you own a bank, you employ the MD. What do you have? What do you do? Please, MD, I want, how much have you been given by Central Bank? 10 billion. Very good. Can you bring 7 billion to my house tonight? Otherwise, oh yes, no, now I'll bring it with bullion wine in the night. If it is not brought, the man will be fired. Exactly. So the central bank is saying, oh, the money we have given, there is sabotage. Governor Rufai said he knows a governor who had collected 500 million. Somebody said in somewhere yesterday that I know a governor in the Northwest who has collected 28 billion naira. Oh yeah. So you know what is going to happen during the election? Even with 200 naira, 100 naira, you get. Exactly. It used to be 5,000, 3,000. Now that you have no money at all, what do you do? Solidarity forever. Victory. There is victory for us. Permit me to begin this speech with the word of Frantz Fanon that every generation must, out of relative obscurity, discover its mission to fulfill it or betray it. Unquote. Comrade, I dare say, and I am sure you will all agree that Nigeria is drifting towards a state of anarchy. Certainly, no other time than now must we all come together and rescue the only country we have by providing the political alternative that will snatch the country from the jaws of the political desperado, vampire, vulture, hovering over our collective destiny. What is the current state of Nigeria? And I would say, before delving proper into the matter at hand, I want to crave your indulgence to discuss briefly the current state of Nigeria. Can we see ourselves as a nation after about 62 years of independence? A former President Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida on Tuesday, August 9, 2022 said, Nigeria is not yet a nation. His argument is that Nigeria still relates in terms of ethnicity, region, religion, racial divides. Recall that Paul Bafeka Awolowo also in his book, Path to Nigeria Freedom, published in 1947 and opined that Nigeria is mere geographical expression. He said there are no Nigerians in the same sense that there are English or Welsh or French. Also in 1947, Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, the first Prime Minister of Nigeria, said, since the amalgamation of Southern and Northern Protectorate in 1914, Nigeria has existed as one country only on paper. Today, however, in spite of efforts of our heroes past, the country seems divided than ever before. The Boko Haram ISWAP, terrorists, Fulani herdsmen, bandits, the Biafra agitation, through the movement of the actualization of sovereign state of Biafra, MASOP, first and new indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, led by Nnamdi Kanu, the Yoruba nation agitator, the Niger Delta militant, have threatened the very foundation of the nation. The implication is that the country is yet to be united along ethnic, region, and religious lines. More than 35,000 people have been killed by Boko Haram, ISWAP, Ansarut, and other insurgents in the north since 2009. Now, the current twin assault of fuel and naira scarcity. Let's talk about this for a moment. As Nigerians were still grappling with the woes and misery of high cost of living and galloping inflation occasioned by naira-dollar imbalance in an import-dependent economy, the federal government shared us with the twin assault of fuel and naira scarcity, which thrust dagger into the torso of the commonest of men and stabbed us in the back. Comrades, it saddens me and saddens my heart to say this, that these are some of the worst and most perilous times for the helpless masses, as many are on the brink of financial collapse, not because they have suddenly become insolvent, but because they have been mischievously denied access to their hard-earned fortune under the pretext of cashless policy wrongly implemented. The reality is that Nigeria have been betrayed by the banking system under the supervision of the Central Bank of Nigeria. They have also been failed by the federal government, which unilaterally decided to change the highest denomination of our currency, subjecting the masses to financial strangulation and calamity of ethnic proportion. Nigeria could no longer cater for the basic needs of food, clothing, shelter for a force which is entirely not theirs. We have never had it so bad. Many have died in the banking hall and many have committed suicide. Fuel queues continue to grow longer at extortionate rates.
A sharp, split within the ruling class to the extent that the candidate of the ruling party is more or less like the leader of the opposition.
For now.
For now. And you see it in different ways. Even the other political parties, bigger ones, you also see these elements of split. So it is so clear that there's a split within the ruling class. That is when the people, as a result of their suffering, what they are going through, are not prepared to be ruled in the old way. And there's no doubt that for the mass of Nigerians, they are no longer prepared to be ruled in the old way. And the fourth one is that as a combination of all these, you have the general uprising in the country. So if we look at these basic fundamentals, there's no doubt that we have what we can actually call a revolutionary situation or an objective condition for even an insurrection to take place in Nigeria today. The ruling classes have messed up everything that they have taught. So it will not be difficult for us, for example, to say that we are standing on a program of opposition to privatization. Because we can point to how privatization has failed us in the aviation sector, in the transport sector, and in the banking sector, which is in a mesh in this current crisis that we are facing. Of course, that of the educational sector is there. So, just like we had in the FCP then, it shouldn't be difficult for us to involve a 10-point program that resonates with the masses, who for now find themselves in all these situations. Now, my second to the last point has to do with what would then be the likely scenario, because it's also important for us to look at where Nigeria is going. Already we are in a total crisis, but I hope that comrades, activists and so on are also even thinking ahead of what might happen depending on the outcome of the elections itself. And I'm glad that some of our comrades, for example, have produced this kind of a pamphlet on the national question, which we have spoken about again and again. Either way the results go, we are likely to have a resurgence of crisis in different ways. And the way I see this is this: if a Tinubu emerges as president, he's going to really raise another round of mood of anger among the younger generation, particularly the younger activists who participated in NETSAS and the rest of them, who will really feel that, you know, we are in it again, given, you know, this kind of whatever. And at the same time, given the way the campaign has been characterized by attacks on other ethnic groups, it may also lead to a kind of agitation between the Igbos and the Yorubas. If an article wins, that one is straightforward. It's like, oh, the Fulanis are back. And we may have a situation where every other problem now becomes a Fulani something on our hands in the country. And it may lead to the resurgence of Yoruba nationalism. The Yorubas must go away. You know, IPOB or even another formation and the rest, you know, of them. If an Obi wins, which is actually, you know, not, you know, ruled out, it might also, in a way, you know, raise, you know, all this, especially coming from a minority party that the majority may want to move against, and that in itself can actually, you know, precipitate another round, you know, of a crisis. So I feel that when you look at this, even in terms of what might become of Nigeria after this election, the kind of discussion that we're having becomes very, very important.
Given we have a country that privatization is a failure in Nigeria, and that privatization must be reviewed so that the companies taking should be returned to the government. So that book, that report, you must publish it under your leadership. Because what you did with the struggle against privatization of the electricity company, the game must be well documented, not for you, but for Nigerians. Because comrade that once asked you, and you told me, before the privatization of the electricity sector, that sector had become self-sufficient. It was no longer asking for budget from the National Assembly. And at that time, we have more regular electricity supply. After they took over the company and sold them to themselves, the government had given over 2 trillion to the discos, who are now giving us the grace. So that history must also be told. Today, like you predict the company, they couldn't run the companies. Most of those companies now have been taken over by the banks through AMCON. The one in Ibadan, Yola, Benin, Abuja, all of them have been taken over by the banks. Because they couldn't pay the loans. They couldn't pay the loan. And apart from the money given to them, these criminals will tell you, how can the government be subsidizing fuel? But the government subsidizes that. I'm telling you, for electricity sector alone, they've taken over 2 trillion naira. The banks were going to collapse. 2008, the banks were going to collapse. Based on crisis of global capitalism, what did they do? The loans taken by the ruling class members were toxic, and they were going to collapse the economy. So the government set up what they call AMCON to buy the toxic loans of the ruling class. Today, they are owing 5.4 trillion naira. About 280 people are owing 5.4 trillion naira, which they can't pay.
I don't know who should be throwing stone to leadership. If you throw stone to me, I throw stone back to you. Because we are united in this. Because through that throwing of stones, we have lost our own. If you start throwing stones to me and I start avoiding you, you have lost the movement. Clear. If I'm not comfortable coming to you, and that was what happened to most of the people before now. The issue of alternative, political alternative, is something we must all agree. While some of us are thinking that with the Labour Party, we are moving towards that alternative. We may not have a candidate that is ideological, that is our candidate, but we must all fight for him to take our program and adopt it. That means if we can convert him for now. And the moment that Governor addressed him, the first interactive forum, he said, The people who are meeting are not relevant. What are you doing with IBB, Babangida, Basanjo, all these people? Why not visit trade union offices and connect with them? Those are the people that give you power. That power is in the street, waiting for who to collect it. That will be advice.